Hello, and you're very welcome along to another edition of the GMAC podcast. I'm John McMahon, and of course, this podcast is kindly brought to you by orgoretch.com. Use my promo code GMAC podcast to get 15% off on their website. And tonight, I'm joined by On Clay podcast owner and creator Seamus Brady to talk about all of last weekend's provincial final action and, of course, this weekend's provincial final action. It's hard to believe we're at this stage already, Seamus, but look, that is the condensed season for you. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me back on.
All good, sir. Bank holiday Monday, the sun's shining. Oh man, I'd love to be out there and enjoying the sun, but podcast time always comes on the Monday. It can be tough, but we'll
I'm catching the sunset as soon as this pod is done. I'm right, hopping in the car
yeah,
and
we'll not,
straight to the
we,
beach.
yeah. We'll not hold the viewers too long or the listeners too long. How are you? Good weekend.
Good weekend, yeah. Lots of action across all four codes. Really, really interesting time in Gaelic games as well. I've made my opinions very clear as well about the camogie situation with the shorts and the skirts. I'm firmly stand that the players should be the ones deciding what they're most comfortable in wearing. But yeah, that's an important point to make, I think, on every platform around Gaelic games. Obviously, this pod, we're going to focus in on the two provincial football finals on the men's side, which took place across the weekend. Mayo Galway was a cracker, like superb game, real game of two halves, really allowed by the wind because Galway were able to pull so far ahead of Mayo at halftime. And then Mayo were able to roar back into the contest in the third quarter. And then going down the final quarter, you threw everything out the window going down that final quarter. It was just who was able to dog it out and who was able to, get there when it really, really mattered. And Galway proved, their mettle there. And the last minute point from O'Connell after they turned it over was sensational. Just the finish, and Galway found a way to get over the line. The Kerry game was a lot more one-sided. Kerry had their work done in the first half, but obviously we're talking about Kerry more in the grand scheme of can they win the All-Ireland back this year? And that's what we're going to have to investigate.
Yeah, absolutely, James. Without a shadow of doubt. Make no doubt about it. That's good to hear, James. Suppose we'll crack straight into the action. Yesterday in the Connacht Senior Football Championship final, it was Mayo against Galway in McHale Park. It was Mayo 115, Galway 117 after a rip-roaring contest. It had to be said. Obviously, a great win for Galway. 4 Connacht titles in a row is mighty going, and the crowd in Caspar yesterday, obviously, I think it was up and around 20,000, and great for provincial finals. And there's a bit of life in these provincials yet, James, with the help and grace of God. But it was a great game, and obviously Galway getting this job done without Shane Walsh and Damien Comer, very, very impressive. It was a very good performance. Obviously, I was watching Kevin McStay after the game yesterday, and he was very, very disappointed, and it kind of makes you think that, well, in my personal opinion, I can't see Mayo winning Sam for another couple of years. So I think the Connacht title was definitely within the reach this year, and that has not happened, Seamus. So there's going to be a lot of disappointed Mayo fans out there this week and for the weeks to come. But your thoughts on this game yesterday?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting game. Very, very, very good championship feel off this game. Very, very competitive from start to finish in terms of the hits going in. Not on the scoreboard though. Galway were hugely dominant in the first half in terms of converting their chances. And when Matthew Tierney got the penalty, all of a sudden they were streets ahead of Mayo and 8 points clear at halftime. You knew that the wind was a big factor in Galway being so far ahead. You knew that. And you knew that when Darren McHale got his goal early on for Mayo, you knew that that was a critical score because it would have given Mayo life in the second half when the wind was on their side. But in the second half, I still expected Galway to be able to manage out that situation better, seeing the way that Mayo just roared back into it, leveled the game up, and definitely bloodied up Galway's nose will be something that will make Park Joyce concerned going forward, no doubt about it. But it is interesting how the tides have switched. So if you go back 5 years, Mayo were by far the dominant force in the Connacht Championship, and they won the majority of the Connacht Championships in the 2010s. The reality is, over the last 5 years, harsh as this sounds, harsh as this is, Mayo have got worse, Galway have got better. And now Galway, on paper, in terms of the squad depth and in terms of how likely they are to win the All-Ireland, Galway have surpassed Mayo, I think, on all three fronts. And Mayo were ahead of them on all three fronts, in my opinion, 5 years ago. I think Joyce coming in, the job that he's done in terms of extending the squad depth was on show in this game. The fact that they were missing Shane Walsh, missing Damien Comer, and still won a Connacht final, a hugely competitive Connacht final against their biggest rivals in the province, shows how much they've improved their squad depth against the Mayo team that was in a Division 1 final. I know that there's context to that, but it's still the way that it was. For me, what we're going to have to discuss with Mayo here is going down the home stretch, some key decisions that they made and some key moments where Galway proved their mettle. And the main one for me is the Dylan McHugh block on Paul Towie at the end there. So Paul Towie gets a chance for goal. Dylan McHugh blocks it down. Galway turn the ball over, run it down the field. Limo Canela slots it over the bar. Galway are now 2 points ahead. And I'm just like, in that moment, Mayo could have equalised. Brilliant block down from McHugh. Galway work it down the field. Swing it over the bar. Now they're 2 points clear. And in my opinion, just there, I was like, that is a perfect example of why Galway are going to win this game. A moment like that is where you see, when the game was reduced to what it was, when the game was so tight going down the home stretch that it was just those millimeters, Galway just gave off the impression they would find a way to win.
Yeah, no, well said, Seamus. And obviously, the former Killian McDade at the minute, Seamus, is just nothing short of amazing. And he had an incredible game against Roscommon, and he's really standing up. And like, I was so impressed with him in obviously yesterday's game and the Roscommon game. But it's kind of what I really am noticing without Shane Walsh or Damien Comer goal at the minute. The other players are getting maybe their chance to, I suppose, shine and stand up. Whereas every single game, we're always thinking, what's Shane Walsh doing? What's Damien Comer doing? And, other players really standing up for Galway at the minute. And it's good to see.
Absolutely. And then, but also you have the old reliable standing up again. Paul Conroy in midfield, 7 points, 3 2-pointers. Like, the fella kicked more 2-pointers than Mayo did in the game. Like, Paul Conroy was absolutely superb. But Killian McDade, the engine that he has, the athlete that he is, he's just unbelievable. And since he broke onto the scene in 2022, especially with that performance against Armagh in the quarterfinal, he's just been a consistent powerhouse for Galway around the middle. And you look at the new rules and you look at how much they've brought, midfield dominance back into the absolute priority for every team. And you look how stacked Galway are. Like that from 8 to 12, Paul Conroy, Sean Kelly, Kane Darcy, John Maher, and Killian McDade. That's serious. Like, that is there a stronger middle? Like, is there a stronger midfield set in the country, do you think? And I'm not just talking your midfield pairing. I'm talking like the way that Galway can throw in John Maher there, Darcy, Sean Kelly, off McDade and Conroy.
Great question, Seamus. And I got plenty of views from Johnny Murta about this. I said that Tyrone midfield was the best in Ireland at the minute after such a dominant performance against Cavan, but I think the Armagh midfield won out the last day. But I think you're right. What them lads are doing for Galway at the minute is nothing short of sensational. Like, you're looking at Derry like about maybe like a year or two ago when you're thinking, Brendan Rodgers and Conor Glass, but they've really gone back in recent years. A couple of years ago, and then obviously Brian Fenton's retired. So what's Dublin's midfield going to be now for the next couple of years? But I think you're right on current form, what they're doing, and like, my God, Seamus, like, let's not forget. Paul Conroy, 35, 36 years of age. He had an incredible game yesterday. He shot the absolute lights out and scored, as you rightly said, scored some incredible 2-pointers, catching ball like a young lad. So, for him to keep coming back to the well, we talk about Stephen Cluxton, we talk about what kind of older folks have we in the game at the minute, like, the older gentleman still hanging on, and Paul Conroy looks in the shape of his life, and he really looks he could play for like another year or two. But I think Galway's on form at the minute has to be well out front, probably followed by maybe Armagh's and Tyrone's. Again, I think Tyrone's will get better under Malachy O'Rourke as well, make no doubt about it. But yeah, you're right. I think Galway's are well out in front at the minute.
Yeah, like, again, I agree with the names that you've thrown in there. I think Carol Kane talking about the Armagh Tyrone game, he put it perfectly. He was talking about that game. He was saying that Tyrone showed why they're all Ireland contenders, but Armagh showed why they're all Ireland champions. And you said we're going to preview the Ulster final later on the pod, so I won't go too in depth into this. But I actually don't think Armagh are going to win the All Ireland. I'd be fairly confident.
The All Ireland.
I don't think
I don't even think they'll win this weekend. Never mind the All Ireland,
yeah,
but we'll get into
like
it though.
a lot of people
Yeah,
are saying Armagh and putting them right in there in the conversation.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I'm not for 1 second doubting how good they are. I
Mm-hmm.
know how good they are. Like I've saw them win the All Ireland last year. I saw them close out a tight game against Kerry in the semi-final. I saw them close out a tight game against Tyrone in what was an unbelievable Ulster game. However, if you were to look back over the last 20 years of Gaelic football and hurling, just across the board, whenever a team breaks a famine, they very, very rarely go back to back. Like it just doesn't really happen. Limerick in the hurling, probably the greatest team of all time. They won it in 2018. They didn't even get to the final in 2019. Dublin in 2011 won our first All Ireland in 16 years. Didn't even get to the final in 2012. Donegal 2012 were all over the place in 2013. I'm not saying that Armagh can't get back in the mix, that they won't get to a semi-final and they won't get to a final, but I'm saying that you can't be as hungry. You just can't. Like there's because you've been to the top of the mountain, and if you look in the history books, it's happening for a reason. Like teams are breaking ducks and then not going back to back for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't know exactly what that is.
Yeah. 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 No, it's definitely a funny one. And like, but like it's so funny, Seamus. Like I'm looking obviously at the scores here yesterday, like, and I'm thinking to myself, like Mayo, like, and we'll touch on we'll touch on tomorrow about Galway in a couple of seconds. But I think with Mayo and like a worrying trend there for them, and you talk about dependability on your forwards, and obviously, we talk about, you need at least all your six forwards potentially chipping in. Like, I think with Ryan O'Donoghue being the main, I know obviously Ryan O'Donoghue's the main scorer at the minute, but I think that's worrying signs for Mayo. Like, obviously scored 9 points yesterday, fantastic game. But for David Neary, for Darren McHale, for Jack Carney, for Dermot O'Connor and Jordan Flynn to not really, I suppose, towing the line for Mayo yesterday when it's such a crucial game. I think down the tracks for Mayo, that'll be a serious worry. And I think the forward department for Mayo is definitely big worry at the minute for Kevin McStay. It has to be.
No, it has to be. Like it is the main one, because you look there throughout the team. I'm looking at their six forwards that they started. So on the sheet here in front of me, you got Dermot O'Connor, who came in at midfield, Matthew Ruan, who got 2 points. He got one from outside the arc, sorry. You've got David Neary, who got a point. You've got Darren McHale, who got 1-2. Jordan Flynn, who didn't score. Aidan O'Shea, who didn't score. Jack Carney, who didn't score. Ryan O'Donoghue, who got 9 points. So I'm saying more so as well. Jack Carney, Aidan O'Shea, and Jordan Flynn. You could make the case that all three of them are midfielders.
Yeah.
So who's a natural inside forward in that team? McHale shows potential. There's no doubt about it, especially at club level. I thought he's really impressive with Knockmore. But O'Donoghue, for me, is the only top class inside forward that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can put a muzzle on him, they're done. They're in the pits. Like there's nobody bailing them out. And I think that the thing that was massively, massively concerning, and I don't know if you've seen me banging on about this, but by God, I was banging on about this from early on in the league. I said, Mayo not kicking 2-pointers is going to bite them in the arse at some point. It's going to happen. And sure enough, I know Ruan kicked one in the game. I know O'Donoghue kicked one in the game, and there was that controversy as well over the Gleeson one. However, if you look in the league, Mayo never even attempted to kick 2-pointers. In a league final that everyone was saying, who even cares about it? Mayo still weren't even trying to kick 2-pointers. They were completely ignoring it, while teams like Donegal, Galway, all embraced it and thrived off it. One of the key reasons that Meath beat Dublin in the Leinster Championship was their 2-pointers that they got in the first half to build up a massive lead at half time. Mayo have completely ignored the 2-pointers, and as such, they are not as well equipped and well versed in kicking the 2-pointers as Galway are, as Donegal are, as Armagh are, because they have not, tuned.
Embraced it.
They have not tuned it. So what happened was, in the final play, when the Hooter's gone and Mayo needed 2-pointer, they end up throwing it to Ruan and just going, please God, he gets this.
Just hit it. Yeah.
Just have a go. Whereas Donegal would have been, right, we know what to do here. We need to get Darrell Boyle off the right foot, or we need to get Patrick McBrearty off the left foot, because they're our best two kickers from these different angles, because McGuinness has immediately clocked, we need to embrace this.
Mm-hmm.
And no doubt Michael Murphy has been saying that to him as well.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, I've seen Murphy against down the last day. You can make you put your life savings in that. But the one thing I would say for Mayo, and like and you correctly have said there, but like they haven't embraced the 2-pointers. And then I'm after thinking in my head there, like, and I don't know, maybe this is a bit harsh, you know, and it's easy to say from here on a Monday night, but have Mayo the players to kick the 2-pointers, have the belief, have the quality to, like, I know it's tough at the minute in the county game getting these 2-pointers, and it's easy thing to do. I know Paul Connery made light of it yesterday, but David Clifford obviously have no problem. But have Mayo the players kick the 2-pointers?
Again, we haven't seen it. Where Ruan kicked one, O'Donoghue kicked one, and they would be the two that you would say they're the two that can do it for Mayo, if anybody can. Jordan Flynn probably deserves a shout in that as well. Everyone else, haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen anyone even attempt it. And I wonder, is that coming from McStay? Is McStay actively saying, don't do it? Don't take the shot on. Don't. Because I was watching them in the league final and they were still running the ball. They were still hand passing it off the shoulder and trying to break the line into Kerry's half back line. And they were stepping inside the 40-meter arc to take the shot. I was like, these fellas are playing with their eyes closed. Like, they are literally not embracing what is going to be a key part of the game going forward. Yeah. If you don't embrace it, you're going to be left behind. And the reality is, they had Galway on the back foot. Galway made that superb block from Dylan McHugh. O'Keneal slots it over. Now they're 2 points clear. That was a key turning point, because now Mayo needed a 2-pointer. But in that situation, if you put Donegal in that situation, and they're the example I keep using because they're the team that have consistently got the 2-pointers in every game they've played. If you put Donegal in that position, the next kick out, McGuinness is shouting on, we need to get the ball to Michael Murphy, or we need to get the ball to Darrell Boyle, or we need to get the ball to Patrick McBrearty, or we need to get the ball to Kieran Thompson, or Oisin Gallen, because all of them have proven in championship and in league matches at inter-county level, all of them have proven that they have what it takes to slot it over the bar. And that means that Donegal are much, much harder to defend against going down the home stretch, because you have to cover 5 or 6 different lads. Whereas with Mayo, you know they're going to try and work the ball to Ryan O'Donoghue. And you know that they're going to try to work it to Ruan, because nobody else has shown the ability to kick that. And Mayo would be crazy to trust them to take on that shot for the first time in an inter-county game when it's all on the line. And I think that they've really, really shot themselves in the foot by not practicing this skill, by not sharpening this tool during the league that everybody said no one cared about. So if you didn't care about it, why did you not try to sharpen up your 2-point scoring ability? Because going down the home stretch, you needed a 2-point kicker, and you were forced to just throw it to Ruan, who is capable of hitting them, but you were hoping that Ruan would be as well versed in kicking the 2-pointers as Conroy is. Mm-hmm. Conroy has been doing it for the entire league because Joyce has given him his blessing to have a go time and time again. That's why Conroy hit 3 of them. Yeah. I think that it finally bit them on the arse, and we've seen it coming, to be honest, for a while.
Yeah, point well made. Seamus, point well made, absolutely. But it was Galway's day yesterday, and it was such a good performance, and I think poor choice will be delighted with that yesterday. Like, you see Paul Conroy, 7 points, Rob Finnerty with 4 points, Matthew Tierney 1-1 with the excellent penalty, and Killy McDade with 2 points. And you know, we talk about an array of scores, we talk about, you know, chipping in and all the like a collective effort. And I think Galway really are flying at the moment. And it you know, we talk about all Ireland contenders, and they absolutely have to be right up there. I think poor choice will be delighted with how he has Galway moving at the minute.
Yeah, no, they're moving really, really well. I think when you look at the performances, we were analysing the performances of Conroy, the 3 beautiful 2-pointers that he kicked, Killian McDade's engine around the midfield. John Maher is just superb. John Maher is like one of those, I seen a quote about, I think it was about Sergio Busquets, that someone was talking about with John Maher, I was saying it's quite similar to John Maher. Sorry, was you saying that with Busquets when he was at Barca? Apparently, Pep Guardiola said something like, "If you look at the whole game, you don't see Busquets, but if you look at Busquets, you see the whole game." And it was like
Yeah,
with
true,
John
true.
Maher,
Yeah, he's
if you watch
class.
the game, you don't actually see what he does, but if you watch him,
Yeah,
all of a sudden you see he's involved in everything. Every Galway move, he gets a touch of the ball. He hand passes it off at a key time. He's such a superb Gaelic footballer, just in terms of his work rate, his engine, his heart, his dedication. And he's a manager's dream, to be honest. He's a
yeah,
manager's dream because he just does the job, what's asked of him. He doesn't try anything super flashy. And he tees up the likes of Walsh, Comer, Finnerty to be the superstars up front because he does the dirty work. Same thing with Killian McDade. Killian McDade covers every single blade of grass. And that also allows Paul Conroy then to be a little bit more adventurous, to float a bit further forward because he has players like John Marr, Sean Kelly, McDade who will sprint back and cover him if he gets caught further up the field. So they work really, really well as a unit. And I think their defense is also fantastic. Dylan McHugh is absolutely superb. Johnny McGrath is a superbly solid corner back there. Gleeson, I've always looked at in goal as being a potential pressure point for Galway. That I
that's
think
what I was taking that yesterday. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
if I feel like he can be rattled. I
yeah,
do believe that. I keep going back to the Armagh quarter final where Armagh just turned the pressure right up on Gleeson, and they got two very soft goals out of just lumping high ball in on top of him, and he
yeah.
just made two bad mistakes and they got the goal. So I think that's still for me could be a little bit of a weak point for Galway. His kickouts are superb, Gleeson. His free taking ability is really, really good. I would wonder how he is if Donegal plant Michael Murphy in on top of him, or if Tyrone plant Colin McShane in on top of him and swing a high ball in. I would be worried about how he would deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, and it's very interesting. Like, and I was only kind of thinking there with Galway moving so well at the minute, and like I know, well, here's us again talking about Shea Walsh and Damien Comer. Like, it's very hard to avoid it, but with them moving so well at the minute, Seamus, and like the inside line there for Galway, like they will not be too happy if Walsh and Comer just walks back onto the team, and I was talking to Finian Hanley about this last week, and he was basically kind of saying that with Shane Walsh at the minute, like he just doesn't look like his kind of head's in it, and like he just looked like a lad who was quite disinterested, for the semi final against Roscommon that time, and then obviously Damien Comer. I know he's been kind of plagued with injuries, but the way Galway was moving at the minute, and I know these are two class acts, like life without them seems okay at the minute, and I know down the stretch you may need them, but they won't walk straight. They won't walk straight back into that team. I wouldn't say.
Well, what we could see with Walsh potentially is we could see Walsh going into a kind of role that's similar that Diarmuid Connolly had with the Dublin team, kind of 2018, 2019, where he's hovering and you know that they're going to bring him in when when the crunch comes. You know that he's going to be brought in when the big dogs need to be brought out. And like you always knew with Connolly that if Connolly had been dedicated from the start of the season and trained like everyone else and, put in the hard yards like everyone else, he would be starting and playing the full 70 minutes because skill wise and talent wise, he's the best player we've got. Like, and he still was at that time the best player we had. I'll stand by. He's the most talented footballer.
Oh, I'd agree. Yeah.
Yeah. With Walsh, again, I'm surprised that is the kind of general impression because I was looking at him through the league, especially the early stages when he was kicking the 2 pointers, and I was thinking, he looks as good as I've seen him
But
in the
I'd love
first
to
league
know
game.
what's wrong. Like sorry to put in there, James, but like he was
No.
absolutely flying throughout the league. Like, and he was incredible, and he's doing really well. I'd love to know what's happened in recent weeks, or why he's not starting, why is he not kicking his 9 or 10 points a game, and like why wasn't he playing yesterday? Like, what has happened since the league is what I'd love to know.
But I just assumed it was an injury because
I
he's
don't
been
think he is
very
though.
injury prone.
Yeah, Finian said he wasn't, so I don't know. It's yeah.
Oh God, right. But well,
Mm,
then who knows? Because to not even bring him on when the game's in the going down the home stretch like that, it's a
yeah,
very, very interesting one to look at then when you have that new bit of information. I genuinely thought he's just picked up some leg
yeah.
injury again, which he's had he has been riddled with over the last 2 years. And I think maybe he got a scare. That's one thing. Is a lot of players, a lot of pros talk about, that there's the physical recovery and then there's the mental recovery. So you get a bad injury, you're back fit technically, but you still don't trust your body to go 100%. Maybe Walsh got a tweak in training or a bad knock, and he's just a bit nervous of doing it again. There's multiple different.
Oh, there's loads of
I
stuff.
have no idea. I'm shooting a shot in the dark there, but if he's fit and he's available, he has to start.
Yeah.
He's their best forward. He still is their best forward. Comer should also start if he's fit. Their best front six, without question, for me, is you want to have John Maher in there. You want to have, I'd say, Tierney at 11, McDade at 12, Finnerty, Comer, Walsh.
Yeah.
Kane Darcy drops to an impact sub, but I still think he's unbelievable and definitely does come in at some stage of the game. And then I'd go with, I put McDade at left half, didn't I? So then I'd keep with Kelly and Conroy named at midfield.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely very interested to see what the story is now for the All-Ireland series with them pair of boys, but it'll be very interesting to see. And obviously, well done to Galway. They are Connacht Senior Football Champions for 2025, and no doubt celebrations are ongoing in the West. Seamus, make no doubt about it. And then we'll move on to the Munster Senior Football Championship final yesterday. It was Kerry against Clare at Fitzgerald Stadium. It was Kerry 420. Clare 21 points, probably, what we expected, really. Obviously, Kerry to get the job done here. Seamus, make no doubt about it. And it was a very, very good performance. Clare did put up a good fight, but I think we all knew what was coming down the tracks. David Clifford's man of the match performance. I think the game was over within a couple of minutes, really, you nearly could say, and some lovely goals. And even that second goal, I think was it Jack O'Connor said after the game, it nearly reminded him of Alan Shearer getting the toe poke at the end. It was such a great finish, but Clifford shines, Kerry shines, and they're into the All-Ireland series. Probably, I know the game against Cork maybe will stand to them, but you could basically say at a canter once again, Seamus.
Yeah, and crucially as well, Seanie O'Shea getting 8 points. A lot of people have spoke about him, that he hasn't been looking quite himself over the last couple of years, which I would agree with. I don't think we've seen him hit the heights that he hit in 2022 and 2023. I think last year he was quiet, given his personal standards that he's had over the last couple of years. So having him hit 8 points, regardless of how many he got from frees or etc., is very, very important. And he landed the early 2-pointer, which kind of set the tone for Kerry that they meant business and they would take advantage of the 2-meter arc if Clare were to allow them to take shots from there. And I think that definitely opened up chances for goals as well. Once Kerry shown from Shawnee that they were hitting the 2-pointers, Clare were kind of forced to push out a little bit on them, opened up the space inside for David to do the damage. You're right, the first goal was a grand finish. The second goal was pure instinct. That's goal scorer instinct right there, because the ball just deflects back up and he just pops his left leg at it and somehow manages to accurately put it into the back of the net. It's a brilliant instinct goal scorer instinct right there from David Clifford. For this game, look, Kerry did the hard work in the first half. There's no question. The game was fairly much over at halftime. You knew that that's a mountain back for Clare. Kerry did most of their damage in the period of the black card, where Emma McMahon had to sit out. I thought it was harsh. I did think, probably was, but at the same time, definitely harsh. And then to see how much Kerry made Clare pay in that period, when Emma McMahon came back into the fold, like, the game was done. Like, Kerry had put too much distance between themselves and the banner. But to see Clare, on the other hand, Dell and Peter Keane, like, they'll be proud with how they stood up for themselves in the second half, finished with a tally of 21 points. Shown that they weren't no pushovers and they kept swinging at Kerry until the very end. Obviously, with Kerry, we're looking at this thinking, we're measuring them up on, are they going to win the All-Ireland? That's always the way that we're measuring Kerry up.
Yeah.
What did you think of them? Like, what did you think in game-wise? What potential weaknesses did you see and strengths?
I think score concession from the Kerry end of things, they'll not be happy with Clare scoring 20 points on them yesterday. I think it seems to be, obviously, with these new rules, for the good teams, and as you rightly said there, like if you want to go on and win an All Ireland, I think to concede that much in a game, you should be winning by a whole, probably. I know obviously 4 goals, and don't get me wrong, that's still exceptional scoring, but I think if you've any sort of ideas of really pushing yourself, you shouldn't be conceding that many points, because I think when it gets to the late stages in Croke Park, and the cut and trust, and your All Ireland semi-finals, final even to a degree, I think you can't be conceding that much against you. We basically can say a Division 3 team, and don't get me wrong, Clare can make life very hard for teams, and Embrook, Man, Owen Cleary are quality forwards, but I think score concession is something Jack O'Connor will have to work on now for the next couple of weeks. He'll not be happy with that. But regarding, like as Peter Keane said after the game, I was listening to him there today. He was saying that Kerry looked very slick, and you can see what Keane O'Neill, the input he's having on that team, and Jack O'Connor has to be very, very impressed with how they're moving inside there. And sure, obviously David Clifford was just once again exceptional. The form, as you rightly said there, but Sean O'Shea as well. Like, so, look, I think it's probably the defending is probably what they'll probably have to work on, but you can't really fault them up top. They really are peerless now, it has to be said, and they will be absolutely delighted with that. But yeah, I think, look, yesterday was a funny one, because I think we all knew who was going to win. The dogs in the street knew who was going to win that game yesterday, make no doubt about it. But I think this thing of maybe taking the foot off the pedal in these games, and don't get me wrong, I know it's an easy thing for me and you to say on a Monday night, but I think if you really want to, as my original point, if you really want to push on and do well, you can't be conceding that much. Don't take the foot off the pedal. Be relentless. Block up the defense. Completely just put your foot down and throat, I suppose. But that's one thing they'll probably have to worry about. But other than that, I think Kerry are moving quite well at the minute. Their spread of scores, Jack O'Connor will be very, very happy with that. And, look, another Munster title for them, they'll be happy enough.
Yeah, they certainly will be. Like, again, it's about building in those habits. It's about building in that resilience at the back, that like you take pride almost in keeping the forwards down to a certain tally. And the reality is Galway kept Mayo in an extremely competitive game, kept them to 115. Even when Mayo had a huge wind in the second half and were able to roar back in, Galway were able to stop them dead in their tracks in terms of their scoring going down the home stretch of the most important part of the game. So the reality is, I would look at it more so that the one thing we have to be very careful about this year is, with the new rules, the script from previous years has been completely ripped up. Like, I would look at previous years and go, oh, well, when Jack O'Connor came in 2022, he brought in, Donny Buckley was there with Peter Keane. He kind of was the first one that brought in that real rigid, tight defensive system, and Kerry should have won that All Ireland in 2019. I stand by it, especially in the first game. And then when Jack O'Connor came in, he brought in Paddy Talley along with him, implemented a very strong defensive system. Tyg Morley, Jason Foley all thrived. And that was one of the key components in Kerry winning that All Ireland that year, because their defense was rock solid. However, since then, the rules have completely changed. Kerry's defense looked weaker over the last 2 years. I will stand by that. It looked weaker over the last 2 years versus how it looked in 2022. And I believe that that's the main reason that they didn't get back to the All Ireland title. But the new rules have made pretty much everyone's defense look weaker. Like, I'd say across the board, everyone is conceding more, and which is what we wanted. I hated the way that the bigger teams were able to just, especially Dublin and Leinster, were able to just strangle teams, like to just give them absolutely no chance of scoring. Mm-hmm. Whereas now there are more scores flying, and the thing that Kerry can be the most positive is their scoring supply is as good as anyone in the country. Mm-hmm. The talent that they have up front is as good as anybody in the country, and arguably the best. They will be very confident about that. The one thing is that you have to be slightly concerned about is they do look open. They do look like they would.
But this is my point. Yeah.
And that is, so what happens on a day where David Clifford isn't at the races?
Fire. But this is what I'm saying, Seamus. Like that,
and that's probably still as open as ever.
Yeah, 100%. And this is what I'm saying, Shane. Like we talk about Paddy Talley and the impact that he had, but I think in an All-Ireland final or in an All-Ireland semi-final, and as you correctly said, if David Clifford is having an off day, like he's unfortunately maybe had in Croke Park in recent years, then what happens? And the Kerry are open at the back, and maybe Paul Geaney isn't firing, and that's that has happened on a regular basis. Like, let's not shy away from it. And maybe Sean O'Shea's maybe doing the bulk of the scoring, but obviously Sean O'Shea likes kind of tracking back too. That's when that's really when the shit could hit the fan.
Yeah, as well, because last year, the defeat to Armagh was much more of a bruising defeat, because Clifford had stayed on for the entire game. Because I remember the narrative after the Tyrone semi-final in 2021, the narrative was, oh well, Kerry only lost because David Clifford had to go off injured and didn't play an extra time. And I remember at the time saying on Claire, I remember saying, no, the reason you lost was Tyrone ran right down the heart of your defence for all three of their goals. If your defence was as solid as Tyrone's defence was, you would not have done that.
Of course,
Tyrone got their 3 goals running down the heart of the defence. 2022, Jack O'Connor comes in, Paddy Tally comes in. Nobody ran down the heart of Kerry's defence that year. Like, everyone was forced to go wide. Even you think of Cormac Costello's beautiful goal that Dublin got, he was right out on the edge of the penalty box when he took that shot on. He was not going down the centre of Kerry's defence. So Kerry had sorted that problem out, but it has become a problem again. They really, really are, I would say, open in terms of goals. Cork proved that in their game. Cork really got them in serious hot bother in that Munster semi-final. And I really would look at it that coming up against a Donegal, a Galway, a team that are going to be able to not snuff out their attack, but dampen the flame for sure. They're going to be able to reduce the amount that Clifford is scoring, reduce the amount that Gainey is scoring. And if Kerry are as open as ever at the other end, we've seen that Galway can do damage. We've seen that Donegal can do damage. And that's why right now, even though they won the league, even though they have the Cliffords, I'd put them not in my top 2 to win the All-Ireland. I think my top 2 to win the All-Ireland so far right now is Galway, Donegal.
I think, I'd agree with that.
I really think it's going to be one of them too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would. And I think Clifford, even yesterday, like, and yourself, you don't give away much in post-match interviews, but I think, he did shoot the lights out. He had a fantastic game, but there is that school of thought as well, Seamus, that it's, it is Division 3 team. It's Clare. I think if Clifford can do this, against, and obviously not to put too much pressure on him, of course, but like in an All-Ireland semi, as you rightly said, against like a Galway or Donegal, I think that's what will define his greatness. And we can really, I know obviously he's up there with probably being one of the best ever, make no doubt about it, but I think that's when we really will, right, David Clifford, you were up there. I think yesterday was more, at times it probably was shooting practice for him, like the way he got in for the first goal was just, the defending just simply wasn't good enough. I think the ball in for him was top class and his catch was top class, but even for the second goal, the way he took it well, but just Clare's defending was just really, really bad. So I think, yes, it was shooting practice. Now, for the next couple of games, I think we will hopefully see the true great that is David Clifford.
Certainly, and I think
if you get what I'm saying to you, yeah.
I do get what you're saying, that like it's more impressive to drag a win out when you're in the pits, like when you're in the trenches. And it's more impressive to do that, because it's one thing getting a win when everything you touch sails over the bar, like, and it's kind of easy like that, but it's another thing entirely to really dig it out of the trenches. And the thing is we have seen David Clifford do that. That's one thing that I always feel like. I feel like somehow David Clifford is like fairly rated by most people, but then by other people overrated, and by other people spectacularly underrated. Because I've heard some people say that already he's the greatest of all time. I'm like, no, he's not already the greatest of all time. Like, he hasn't done yet what Peter Canavan did. He hasn't done yet what players like, he hasn't got to the level where you can say he's the greatest of all time. Like, you have to look at players like Pat Spillane, who won 8 All-Irelands with Kerry over how many years. Like, that's greatness. For David, he is without doubt one of the most talented players to ever play, for sure. And the thing is that people forget that he did drag Kerry in that All-Ireland final against Galway. It was the Clifford and Walsh show that day, but David Clifford down at the Kerry at the Galway Cole, David Clifford was outstanding that day, and he was an absolute captain and leader that day. Because I remember I wanted Galway to win. I'll admit this, I'm a dub. Surprise, surprise, I wanted Kerry to lose the final. But I remember being like, God, this fucking guy, like he just
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
he
yeah,
won't
yeah.
let Kerry lose. He literally
Yeah.
just
Ah,
won't
he
let them
was
lose. He
relentless,
was
relentless.
imperious that day, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's why it stuck in my head so much because I wanted
Yeah,
Galway to win, and David
yeah.
just wasn't having it. And I think people do have short memories when it comes to that. The league game this year against Tyrone as well, what was the key game in Kerry getting to that league final? Away in Tyrone, David Clifford stood up, got the hat trick, bailed Kerry out that day because they did not deserve to win that game without him.
Yeah.
And so he has shown an ability to drag his team along with him. He has also had off days, but I think we do need to be very understanding of what he was going through when he had his off
100%.
day
Without a
against
doubt.
Tyrone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's still a young man who had recently lost his mother. Like we can't even imagine to what he was going through at that time. Now we've seen it that when he scored the first goal against Clare, he did the look up to heaven and everything, and that was a lovely, lovely moment for him. To remember his late mother, who no doubt looking down on him proud there. So you'd imagine he's not in as tough a place this season, so we could
No.
see the best of him.
Yeah, 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 100%. Like I think last year, like 2023 when his mom sadly passed away, but last year he probably had maybe a bit of a backlog of that, and we talked with
Oh, he definitely
briefly.
had a backlog of that for
He
sure.
did, he did. Like, and I think it's very easy. And I know, like, Christ, you only need to have one scroll on Twitter to see the absolute cesspit that it is, and people, having faults, attacks, and oh, Clifford didn't do this last year. Why did he not do this? And oh God, he didn't score that point. What's wrong with him? Like, I think people do tend to forget that they are human.
Mm-hmm.
They're humans like the rest of us. They lose people, people die in their lives. They might be off form. So, as you correctly said, James, like this year, with the help and grace of God, we will see the best of David Clifford, make no doubt about it. Obviously, Paddy as well.
Yeah,
Paddy, an absolutely terrific footballer as well. So it's hopefully it's a great season for both of them. But I think from a Dublin supporters' point of view, yeah, you probably want to see them having a quiet season. I'd say.
no, to be honest, just from first and foremost, just someone who loves Gaelic football, I want to see David at his best. I want to
Yeah,
see Paddy at his best. I still want to beat them, but I want to see them lads strutting their stuff and showing what they're capable of. Because, by God, when David's in full flight, when Paddy's in full flight, it's a joy to watch, and you are privileged to see two magicians strut their stuff. When you throw Shawnee O'Shea then in, like Kerry have an unbelievable forward line built around the three of them. It's just about getting the balance right. It's about making sure that they're all working as best as they can off each other and that they're ready for the tougher tests ahead. Because this game against Clare, spirited as Clare were in the second half, there's tougher tests ahead for Kerry, without
yeah,
doubt. And if they want to win the All Ireland, they're going to have to go through some demons like Galway,
yeah,
Donegal, Tyrone, I think, are going to be in the mix as well. Dublin, I don't think are as big a threat this year at all as we've
mm,
seen. But I think Dublin will come into this with kind of an underdog mentality, similar to 2010 when we made the semi final and eventually lost to Cork after we'd been humbled
yeah.
by Meath. I think that could be our way this year. I don't think Mayo will be a threat to the All Ireland this year.
No.
Um, so I think Kerry, for me, kind of come in at about, I'd say, number 4 in terms of like who I think is going to win the All Ireland. I think maybe number 3, actually. I'll put them number 3. I think they're behind Galway, Donegal, but probably slightly ahead, in my opinion, of
Armagh.
Armagh and Tyrone this year for most likely to win.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting how it all pans out. And obviously, congratulations to Kerry, Munster Senior Football Champions for 2025, Seamus. And I suppose we will crack on to the action this weekend on Saturday in the Ulster Senior Football Championship final. It's Armagh against Donegal in Clonus at 5:25, and of course, the game will be live on RTE and BBC. Well, I suppose the main talking point going into this with Seamus just has to be the time and when this game is. Ulster finals in my eyes and recollection, and being the closest numerous times for them, is on a Sunday at 2 or 4 o'clock, and I think on a Saturday evening at 5:25. I think there's something seriously wrong here. I haven't really I haven't got the memo yet for why this game is not this Sunday. Like, I think it's a complete PR disaster. I really think it could potentially take away from the crowd. Also, final was really always on a Sunday, but look, it's going to be hopefully a mouth-watering game. We've seen it last year, went all the way to penalties. Donegal got over the line. Armagh heartbreak once again. The big thing for Armagh, if it does go down the stretch and does unfortunately go to penalties, will they have the resolve and bottle, to get over the line if it does get that far. But I think it will go down the stretch once again. I think it'll be so, so tight. Very, very hard to call these two teams. I was at the semi-final, Donegal and Down really did not throw a punch really at Donegal, unfortunately, and probably could have and should have, and Donegal did let them. It's going to be a very, very, very interesting game this weekend.
Oh, this one's going to be unbelievable. Like, I think you couldn't have two more evenly matched teams. Like, every time you see them play, it's always a draw, or it's always a 1 point win or a 2 point win, depending on who gets the better on the day. So, I have no doubt both teams are strapping up and ready to go to war, because this game is going to be a battle from start to finish. And again, we throw all the cliches, but genuinely, when it comes into a game like this, you throw all the notes you have out the window, because both teams are just going to go into this and give it everything that they've got. And you look at Armagh, the hurt that they had this time last year, losing on penalties to Donegal, and that was 4 penalty shootouts that they'd lost, and they were seen at the time as being serial bottlers, like that. They kept finding a way to throw it away, and the narrative had switched. The narrative wasn't, oh, Armagh are so unlucky. The narrative was, at the time, they kept throwing it away. They should have closed them games out, and there was very little sympathy for them, actually. Then fast forward a year, Armagh won a very, very tight game against Kerry in the semi-final. They won a very, very tight All-Ireland final against Galway and got over the line for the biggest prize of all, on the biggest day of all, on the biggest stage of all. That confidence from getting over the line in a game like that, you can't buy. And the Ulster semi-final was a very interesting insight into how much confidence that's given them, because that game against Tyrone was a game where Armagh might have found a way to lose a few years ago, but this time Armagh found a way to win. And as Carol Kane said it in his tweet, Tyrone showed in that game why they're All-Ireland contenders. Armagh showed why they're All-Ireland champions. And going into this Ulster final, I personally think that the prime reason that Kieran McGeeney is still here is to win the Ulster title. Like, I really believe that he does not want to leave the Armagh job until he has won the Anglo-South with Armagh, because I think, especially, I am jealous, I have to say, the love that Ulster counties have for the provincial championship. Like, it's almost, it gives the impression that it's almost as respected as an All-Ireland.
Oh, it is, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
without a shadow. Seamus, if there's one thing you have to do in your life, well, obviously you've lots and lots of years ahead of you, but get to Ulster final, and I know, get it back to Sunday, hopefully next year, but get down to Clonus on Ulster final day. You'll see what it means to the people. Like, you're talking 20,000 plus people. It could be Armagh, it could be Donegal, it could be Tyrone, it could be Derry, and my God, Seamus, the colour and the razzmatazz. It's incredible. Like, even when Donegal won it last year, like Jim McGuinness back, the yellow and green on the pitch, it was incredible.
Yeah, no, it looks it. Like, I have to say, and the thing is, the one thing that the Ulster Championship has always had is just fierce competitiveness between all of the teams. And like, I know a few people, especially from up the various different counties, and the one thing that they've always said is that whenever an Ulster team wins an All-Ireland or goes a little bit further, it's like all the rest of the teams can't wait to get their hands on them. So, like, I've no doubt Donegal would have been watching Armagh win that All-Ireland last year and just absolutely, chomping at the bit to get at them in the Ulster Championship should they get the opportunity. So, funnily enough, I could actually very easily see them switching roles this year. I could see Armagh winning Ulster, and I could see Donegal winning the All-Ireland.
That could happen. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happens, because I know Jim places a massive importance on winning the Ulster Championship and building that as your base towards bigger and better things. But I really think that Armagh are so desperate to win the Ulster Championship that they're going to give it everything they've got.
Yeah, look, it's going to be very interesting, and it will be so tight, and it'll be Jim McGuinness against Kieran McGeeney on the sideline, and there'll obviously be that bit of edge, and it'll just be, it's going to be very, very tight. Like, I think Armagh going into it, and like I said it a couple of weeks ago, like, obviously with the loss of Rian O'Neill there at the minute, and a penny for his thoughts at the minute going into an Ulster final, like he'd love to be involved in it. I think he'd be a big loss this weekend for especially these two pointers as well. But I think Armagh's performance against Tyrone will definitely stand for them, whereas Donegal's performance against Down in the second half of the last year, they will not be happy with that whatsoever. So I think Armagh, preparation-wise, are probably a bit better cooked going into it, whereas Donegal probably aren't. And I did find with Donegal the last day when Michael Murphy went off the last day, you're seeing the lack of leadership probably around the pitch. And I think Donegal actually slipped a lot. I know the work was done probably when he did go off, but I found they looked fairly completed when he did go off, and I see, and obviously Paddy prepared to go off as well. So leadership was definitely a big problem last year for Donegal. So I don't know. I think even if Murphy was to get injured, Donegal could potentially be in bother, and that's a massive thing to say. I know he's only back, so on and so forth, but I think if you could nearly say if Murphy's not firing this weekend, and obviously Oisin Gallen hasn't been playing really well this season so far, and I wonder really what's going on there. That's definitely an interesting talking point going into this one. I think that's what Armagh could that could be a couple of strings to the bow this weekend, but I don't know. Armagh are probably a bit better prepared for this game potentially.
I would say they've had the more probably testing path to the final, and that is really, really important. However, again, Ulster final, they couldn't care less who you've gone through to get there, and we've seen how many different examples over the last 2 years of teams going through the tougher side of the draw and then not winning the final. Like Cork in 2020 beat Kerry, lost to Tip in the final. Donegal in 2020 in Ulster literally took out everyone on the way to the Ulster final. Like they beat Tyrone in an absolute barn burner. They hammered Armagh, and then Cavan just caught them in the final when Donegal. I remember watching that game thinking, Donegal are just waiting for Cavan to fuck it up, and Cavan didn't. Yeah. I really thought like Donegal are just hoping that Cavan panic, and Cavan didn't. So the one thing is that when you get to the final, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who you've beaten, doesn't matter how much you've scored, doesn't matter who you have on. Like it really is just on the day who's the better team. And genuinely, for both of them, they're so evenly matched that, as stupid as and basic as this sounds, it genuinely just is. Whichever of them turns up closer to their best ability. I think if they both turn up 100% of their capability, I still don't even know who wins. If they're both at 100%, I still don't even know who wins. They're so evenly matched.
They are, yeah.
I would probably shade it to Donegal, and that sounds baffling considering Armagh are All-Ireland champions, but I really think, okay, I'm going to have to hide after I say this, but were Kerry at their best in the semi-final?
No, they were poor, yeah.
Were Galway at their best in the final?
They're good, but they weren't as good as the semi-final, I don't think.
Yeah. Now, you could make the point that Armagh weren't at their best.
Yeah.
But, God, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tight. I don't look. I genuinely and I know not to kind of copy last year, but I genuinely think it will go to stretch. I can really just see it could be a late exit for people on Clonus on Saturday night, and you might have to book a room into Clonus or Monaghan Town there on Saturday night because you could be there for a long, long time. My God, I was at the Ulster final last year, and Jesus, the better half thought I got lost on the way home or something, but I was still there. But I think it's going to be so tight.
Rian O'Neill being gone has to be considered.
Rian O'Neill might not kick a ball for Armagh this year. And how unfortunate is that? But I think and I'm talking to a lot of Armagh people in the last couple of weeks, and people saying, "Oh, John will be fine," and John, we have the forwards to replicate. We're talking David Clifford here. We're talking Brian Fenton when he was last year for Dublin. We're talking Darren McCurry for
generational
player. So I think down the stretch, Rian is definitely going to be a big loss. And I think even if he tries to get back at this stage, I still think will he be fit for it? I'm not too sure, but I think that Tyrone game will stand to Armagh, but this crack of getting jittery and nervous, and even if it does go to stretch the penalties, Donegal probably will get over the line again. So Armagh really need to get a bit of bottle and get over the line in this. But I think the fact they haven't won an Ulster title since 2008 is enough incentive for Armagh to get the job done here. But then you have the Jimmy McGuinness factor in Donegal, but Oh no, look at it. It's going to annoy me all week. I can't. You can make so
It's
many cases for
yeah,
both teams, like you know.
it's so hard to call. It's genuinely like I don't think we've had a provincial, even with Louth and Meath. That one's very close, but with Louth and Meath, we're gonna get into it. But I'm gonna say my heart and my head are different on the Louth and Meath. That's a big hint.
Mm,
Um, but with this game, I genuinely think they're so evenly matched across all facets, and I think
yeah,
I think would if you're gonna break it down this way, as childish as this is, would you rather have Rafferty or Patton going into this game?
for a goalie, like
Yeah, if we're
oh,
running through the
Oh,
what
Patton.
Patton, I would agree. Would you rather have Armagh's defense or Donegal's defense?
Great question. Oh God, Donegal's. But I'm probably just, yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was thinking there you could definitely make the case, but I would probably shade it to Donegal's. I would probably slightly take Armagh's midfield,
I would take Armagh midfield as well. Yeah,
and then in the forward line,
I take
I would
Donegal's
take
forward line.
Donegal's forward line.
You see, that's actually
So,
very when you weigh it up
so,
like that. Yeah,
so we're taking Donegal's forward line, defense, and keeper.
yeah.
I think the coaches, McGuinness and McGeaney, are both exceptional. I think they almost cancel each other out.
Mm,
Um, it's going to go down the home stretch, but I'm shading it to Donegal. And I want
yeah,
Armagh to win. I genuinely want Armagh to get an Ulster title
yeah.
because,
But I think that thing of not winning it, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of counties haven't won an Angus Cup in years. But I think for Armagh to be such a hungry football county, to not win it since 2008, to nearly win it last year, go all the way to penalties, but like it wouldn't just be hitting just crazy if it went all the way to penalties again and Donegal were to get the job done. I genuinely think McGeaney would have kittens.
yeah, I interesting at that point because I remember even saying it on the GA hour last year when they lost the Ulster final to Donegal. I remember saying if you were to just do something as simple as just to reverse all of the 4 penalty shootout results, like if you were to just change them, then Armagh at the very least would have gone back to back on Ulster titles and made it to semi-finals in 2022 and 2023.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm saying that's a completely different legacy as an Armagh boss up until obviously last year when they made the breakthrough and won the All Ireland. Then that seemed to kind of heal the wounds, but they'll be still there for McGeaney. Like he still will, and the how much it would mean to those lads to win the Ulster Championship. They're gonna
But
know they have one more serious
yeah,
score to settle. They've one more, and they've
yeah.
one more thing left to do.
Yeah, but of course, they did win the All Ireland last year. But like, I was at those final last year, and I think it's this thing. Like, yeah, you'd like to think Armagh have kind of moved away from this kind of, obviously with the new rules and kind of get away from that defensive stuff and negative stuff. But this crack maybe not taking shots on at certain points and wasting balls and nerves. I think nerves seem to be a big thing for Armagh times, and obviously Johnny Murtaugh's talked about that a lot in recent years, but. If they can get away from the kind of stuff they're at, I suppose, in the Ulster final last year, they probably and can get the job done this weekend. But like Donegal are very well oiled as well, like, and they'll be well able to kind of deal with Armagh's, I suppose, stuff that goes on the field as well. But it just depends if the nerves get the better of Armagh again. I'm not just talking about penalties. I'm talking about in-play stuff, on-field stuff, and little in-game stuff that goes on. It'll be the hills of Donegal. You'll be hearing in Clonus on Saturday evening.
Just
I don't know.
tell.
No. Why did we talk about this game, James? It's going to annoy me all week.
I'm saying as well. I've actually switched. I'm letting my heart overrule my head. I think Armagh have one more score to settle, and I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think they're going to do it. But my God,
How?
tell Aidan Forker to keep his head to himself.
Yeah. I hope Michael Murphy's wearing a bulletproof. Well, she's not a bulletproof vest.
Don't be great if Michael Murphy wore a GoPro next time.
He might have to. He might have to.
Imagine the views that would get.
Oh, he might have to.
POV, you get headbutted by Aiden Forker.
He might have to. Who knows? It could come to that again. Hopefully not. Right. You're saying Armagh, but how?
How? Okay. So the how I might get over the line. So I'm deciding this on a dime. It could flip either way. It's going to go down to the wire. No doubt about it. This has extra time written all over it. Just like the Toronto Armagh game, it's literally going to be a hair's breadth between the teams. However, since last year, the confidence that Armagh will have gained from closing out the tightest of games against Kerry in the semi-final. When I was watching that semi-final against Kerry thinking, they're going to mess it up. They're going to find a way to throw this game away. They didn't. They showed their mettle. They found a way to win that game. Then in the All-Ireland final, they went one better. When the game was going down the home stretch, Armagh were the ones who held their nerve. Galway were the ones who made mistakes. Armagh took their chances. Aaron McKay's goal, key points from Oisin O'Neill, everything like that. They were the ones who found a way to get over the line. That is completely different to the way that they were being perceived last year as a team who would find a way to lose, find a way to throw the game away. And I think that confidence was on show in the Tyrone game where they found a way to win with Rory Grugan's late free. They found a way to get over the line.
Which they haven't been
Something that they
able to
wouldn't
do.
have done.
Which, yeah.
Something that they wouldn't have done in previous years. And I really, really believe that extra confidence that they have this year is something that they were lacking last year against Donegal. I really believe that. In the Ulster final, I think that they were still, as much as they can say this and that, I think the jitters of having no silverware was in the back of their head. And I think that will give them much more confidence to go in and break their duck in the Ulster Championship. I think it could very easily be, as I said, the other way around this year. That Armagh could win Ulster and Donegal could win the All-Ireland. It would not surprise me at all if that's how the year finishes.
Yeah.
I'm going to shade it to Armagh after extra time by 1 point, as dramatic as it can possibly be.
No penalties.
No penalties. No, I don't think so. No penalties. If Armagh lose on penalties again,
oh my God,
the game is broken. We're living in a simulation at that point.
Right, Seamus. Yeah, I think the more we go on about that, the more headaches we'll give ourselves for that particular game. But it'll be hopefully a mouth-watering game. And yeah, people going to Clones this weekend, lock yourself in because I think we are in for a long night. I think it could well go the full hog, as you've correctly said. Moving on to Sunday's action in the Leinster Senior Football Championship final. It's Meath against Louth. Yes, Meath against Louth in the Leinster final in Croke Park at 4:15. And of course, the game will be live on RTE. Seamus Brady, you're not in a Leinster final. This is real life. These are my hands. That is a computer behind you.
Well, I was saying that that's the first time since I was 9 years old that Dublin are not in a Leinster final.
Crazy stuff. And I'm going to turn on the lights, so keep talking. I'm just going to turn on the light. Keep talking.
But just to recap on that. So I'm 23 years of age now. And now I'm 23 years of age now. And the last time Dublin were not in the Leinster final, I was 9 years old. So I'm saying there's a 14-year age gap between me now versus me the last time that Dublin lost in Leinster. And I said it in my reel that I put out where I was talking about how long it's been off the ball, had the graphic up, which was over 5,000 days or something since Meath had beaten Dublin, or anyone had beaten Dublin in the Leinster Championship for that matter. But I said it in my reel. I said, if you're watching this reel on Instagram didn't exist the last time that Dublin were not in the Leinster final. Like, Instagram was founded in October 2010. So it's just crazy how different the world was last time that Dublin weren't there. But I am a Dublin fan, obviously been a Dublin fan my whole life, but I'm able to step back from the situation and look objectively and go, this is exactly what the Leinster Championship needed. Yeah. Exactly what the Leinster Championship needed. I grew up in the 2000s. My dad brought me to the Leinster final in 2005 against Laois, 2006 against Offaly, 2007 against Laois, and 2008 against Wexford. Wexford's game in 2008, there was 81,000 people at it. 2005 against Laois, 2006 against Offaly, and 2007 against Laois, they were all sellouts. 82,300 people packed in. Why? A few reasons. Number one, Celtic Tiger. People had more money to spend. That's a key reason. But a couple more. Number 2, Dublin were a Russian roulette team. It was very likely that we would shoot ourselves in the foot. We played very expansive attacking football. We were very open at the back, and we were usually involved in the game of the summer. 2006 against Mayo is a very good example, but we would usually lose that game of the summer. Also, final thing, we talked a fair bit of shit. Like we were fairly hype, like 2007 against Laois, the way that they were doing a bit of showboating and they would play to the crowd a lot more. Whereas when Gilroy came in, one of the first things he did, and it was necessary, by the way, one of the first things he did was he brought them back down to earth, and he had them doing sleepouts for the homeless, doing shifts at Brother Kevin's soup kitchen, and getting them more humble and getting them more respecting the honour to play for the Dublin team. But that as well, that meant that what was bringing the crowds in, Dublin were just being very predictable in how that they would get the job done. All the interviews that you see where Dublin will be playing against a Division 4 team and they'd have an interview where they're like, oh no, it's going to be a very hard game this weekend. And you're like, yeah, that like so pre-scripted. There was no, basically the way I put it was you wouldn't buy tickets to go see a movie that you've already seen 10 times before. And what we knew was before the Leinster Championship began, we knew who was going to win and we knew how they were going to win. And especially before the new rules were brought in, under Jim Gavin, they pioneered it, that hand up and hang on to the ball. That if anyone scored, case in point, do you remember 2021, Daniel Flynn scored an unbelievable goal against Dublin in the Leinster final?
Yeah, cracker.
And then Dublin just hung on to the ball for the next 5 minutes. Dublin were like, oh, that's cute. We're taking the ball, and you're not getting it back for 5 minutes. And when you get it back, your momentum will be killed.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost like, it was like you just didn't have a chance because Dublin wouldn't have a shootout with you. And thanks to the new rules, Dublin were forced into a shootout against Meath after a generational team came along. That's another thing that we have to look at. What happened to the Leinster Championship? Dublin got a generational team, the best team of all time. I won't be the best team of all time. At the same time that Meath, Kildare all fell off a cliff in terms of what their standards were. Nobody other than Dublin from 2013 on successfully stayed in Division 1 for a league campaign. If Meath or Kildare got promoted, they got relegated the very next season.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just Dublin's fault. Everyone else around us fell off.
Slipped.
So it was so important, and that the attendances were going down and down and down and down. And last year, Dublin played Meath in the Leinster quarterfinal. I met people that I knew who had come for the game beforehand, which I believe was the Camogie League final. And Dublin and Meath was the last game of the day. And I met people who were leaving the stadium. And I remember going, are you not? And they were like, why the fuck would I watch that? Like, that there was no interest. Everyone knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas this time, Robbie Brennan came in, superb manager. Meath gave off the impression from the minute one of that game that they were there to win. And how beautiful is it that Louth had the team that they're playing in the final, a repeat of 2010.
Joe Sheridan's going to be busy man this week.
Oh, for sure. But I mean it. Like, I fully believe that next year now, there's going to be much more interest in the Leinster Championship.
Well, hopefully, Seamus.
From the Dublin side, there's going to be more fans going.
Yeah, hopefully.
Because that thing of me talking about the sellouts as well was because it was a real belief that Laois would beat Dublin in 05 and 07, and that Offaly would beat Dublin in 06, and Wexford had a very good chance of beating Dublin in 08 because of how competitive those games were. And against Meath in 07, when Joe himself was playing, again, Meath were seen as being equal to Dublin, and it could go either way. So there was real intrigue, whereas over the last 10 years, Dublin were streets ahead of everyone, and everyone knew that Dublin were going to win. Now, next year, Dublin have something to prove. They have a crown to get back. There's going to be better attendances next season for sure.
Yeah.
But this Leinster final probably is the most important since 2010, I would say, in terms of what it means, a doubt, yeah. what it means to both teams. And absolutely extraordinary. Like, what could be on the line here. If Louth can get over the line, 1957, the last time they won a Leinster Championship, the journey that they've been on from when they were in Division 4 and Mickey Hart picked them up, back-to-back promotions up to Division 2. Ger Brennan comes in, takes the wheel, steers Louth to the Leinster final, where they put in an exceptional performance against Dublin and came closer than anybody had come in 10 years. And then took them to an All-Ireland quarter-final. Their standard has just been getting better and better and better. And you look at them winning the Leinster Championship at under 20 level there last week. There's talent coming through as well for Louth. This isn't just a flash in the pan. This is they are going to continue it. This isn't like a situation where Wexford, for example, get to an All-Ireland semi-final in 08, hang around for a couple of years, and then post 2012 fall off a cliff. This is permanent. Like, Louth are here to stay. They've got a factory line of talent coming through, and I really think what it would do for the county for them to win a Leinster title would just be extraordinary. And spoiler alert, I am up for Louth.
Yeah, it's going to be a terrific game this weekend. Really, really looking forward to it. And I think pack the tea and sandwiches and the soup and everything, because it could be a long night at Croke Park this weekend, and really looking forward to that game this weekend. And my God, it's good to two different teams in a Leinster Senior Football Championship final. Seamus, make no doubt about it. And we will just whiz through the games in the Tuttle Cup round 1 this weekend. You've Wexford against Longford in Chedwicks, Wexford Park at 6:30. You've Kildare against Leitrim in St Conleth's Park at 5 p.m. You've Laois v Waterford in Laois Hiramore Park at 3 p.m. You've Offaly v Wicklow in Glennisk O'Connor Park at 1:30, and you've Limerick against London in Rathkeil at 1 p.m. And all them games are taking place on Saturday. Great to have the Tuttle Cup back, make no doubt about it. And then the Tuttle Cup games on Sunday in round 1. You've Westmeath against Antrim in TG Cusack Park at 2 p.m. And of course, game will be live on GA+. You've Fermanagh against Carlow in Brewster Park at 2 p.m. And you've Sligo against Tipperary in Tubbercurry at 1:30. So hopefully the crowds will get out to the Tuttle Cup games, give the support it deserves, and keep driving on that competition, because it's a really, really healthy and strong competition for the teams that are just that shy of winning an All-Ireland title. Seamus Brady, thanks a million for joining me this week. What would be your bet of the weekend and players to watch this weekend? Gamble responsibly.
Yes, absolutely, gamble responsibly. You see, would Louth be underdogs against Meath?
I think it's very tight. Evens, yeah.
Okay, so then
even Stevens.
Bet of the weekend. Across any sport?
Well, you could look at the Ulster game, Ulster final, and the Tuttle Cup games.
Bet of the weekend, Armagh to win on penalties.
I'm telling you, do not be surprised. Do not. Well, Donegal to win on penalties.
Armagh to win on penalties, maybe, to make it go full circle.
Oh my God.
Player of the weekend, I think Sam Mulroy.
Yeah,
leads the way for Louth on a historic day.
Yeah, really looking forward to all the action this weekend. Well, Seamus Brady from the Enclave podcast, thank you a million for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is kindly brought to you by orgarech.com. Use my promo code JMAC to get 15% off on their website. It's getting to the crunch of the championship. Get yourself organised on orgarech.com. Seamus, have a great week. Where can people find you?
Enclave. So under the same name across all social media platforms, just Enclave, which is Oscar for just the game. Nice and simple.
Just the game is right, Seamus, and that's what it's all about. Thanks a million, sir.
No problem.